It was a normal afternoon in the city, sunlight filtering through the glass of the bus windows, traffic humming along, people going about their day with headphones in and heads down. But what started as an ordinary moment would soon unravel into a story that shook the entire community. Two lives, worlds apart, collided in a way no one could have predicted. One, a young black teenager raised with respect, patience, and quiet strength. The other, a white police officer with a record that had too long been ignored until he crossed a line that couldn't be brushed away. It all began on a crowded city bus. The air was thick, not just with the heat, but with that kind of tension people feel when everyone's tired, annoyed, and just trying to get home. Among the passengers was 17-year-old Malik, dressed in a simple hoodie and jeans, backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds in, just another student on his way back from school. He didn't expect anything to happen that day. He didn't expect his quiet act of kindness to turn into something that would make headlines. As Malik noticed a pregnant woman step onto the bus, clearly struggling to keep her balance, he stood up immediately and offered his seat. No big speech, no waiting for thanks, just a simple gesture from a young man who was raised right. The woman, a bit surprised, smiled and took the seat. She looked at him, really looked at him, as if trying to understand what made this teenager so different from the angry stereotypes often tossed around in the news. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. That woman, she wasn't just any commuter. She was the daughter of the city's mayor, Jessica Monroe. And what she didn't say out loud was that her day had already been rocked by a terrifying encounter just hours earlier. One involving a police officer who had lost control, drawn his weapon, and pointed it at her with no clear reason, no warning, only fear in his eyes and power in his hands. And the worst part, she knew it wasn't a mistake. She knew in her heart that the only reason that gun was aimed at her was because she'd been standing next to her husband, who happened to be black. That officer, now disgraced and awaiting sentencing, had a history. Complaints, quiet whispers, dash-cam footage that was never released. Until now. And the moment his actions reached the mayor's ears, the city could no longer turn away. The justice system that had shielded him for so long finally cracked. But Jessica, she didn't want to talk to anyone. She hadn't told the public yet. She hadn't told her father. She hadn't told the press. But something about Malik's quiet kindness hit her differently. Maybe it was the contrast. Maybe it was fate. She reached into her bag, scribbled something on a small notepad, and handed it to him as she got off at her stop. No explanation, just a folded piece of paper. Malik watched her walk away, confused but respectful, slipping the note into his pocket before the bus pulled off again. What he read later that evening would change everything. His plans, his dreams, even the way he saw his city. It was more than a thank you. It was an invitation, a door opening, but also a warning, a truth hidden in plain sight, the story of how that note led Malik down a path toward City Hall, courtroom drama, and a battle for justice. Well, that's just beginning. And as for the officer, the trial didn't just expose what he did that day. It uncovered years of silence, of looking the other way, of a system that had to finally answer for itself. But before we get into all that, what exactly did Jessica write on that note? And why did she choose Malik, of all people, to carry the truth forward? Stay with us, because this isn't just a story about a bus ride. It's about what happens when quiet courage meets loud injustice, and how one moment of kindness can flip the whole narrative. Malik sat on the edge of his bed, the note still in his hand. He had unfolded it 5 times already, read the words over and over, but they still didn't make sense. It was handwritten in a rush, like the writer didn't have much time, but the message was clear enough to shake him. You deserve to know the truth. Come to this address tomorrow. Ask for Evelyn. There was no name signed, just that, no explanation, no detail, nothing that said why this note had been handed to him. Malik didn't even know her name yet. All he knew was that she had seemed kind, a little tired, maybe stressed. He didn't know she was the mayor's daughter. That part came later. The next day at school, Malik could barely focus. Math class passed in a blur. History felt like background noise. His friend Jordan noticed the change in him right away. "You good, man?" Jordan asked between classes. Malik hesitated. "Yeah, just had a weird thing happen yesterday." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "Weird like what?" Malik glanced around. "Just a lady gave me this note after I gave up my seat on the bus. Said I should go somewhere and talk to someone named Evelyn." Jordan blinked. "That's either super cool or super sketchy." "Yeah, that's kind of where I'm stuck." The address was across town, in a part of the city Malik didn't usually visit. After school, he caught the train and then walked the last few blocks. It was a quiet neighborhood, trees lining the street, houses that looked like they'd been there a while, the kind of place where people watch their lawns and their neighbors carefully. When Malik reached the address, he stood at the gate for a full minute before walking up to the door. He knocked once, then twice. A moment later, an older woman opened it, gray streaks in her hair, glasses low on her nose. She didn't look surprised to see him. "You're Malik," she said, more like a statement than a question. He nodded, suddenly feeling like this was bigger than he realized. "Yeah, I got this note." "I know," she said softly. "Come in." The living room was simple but warm. Books lined the shelves, a family photo sat on the table. Malik noticed the woman, Evelyn, had an air about her like someone who had seen a lot and didn't scare easy. She poured him some tea and sat across from him. "I don't know what's going on," Malik said, voice low. "But I feel like I'm in the middle of something I didn't ask for." Evelyn nodded. "You are, but maybe you were meant to be." She explained that the woman on the bus was indeed Jessica Monroe, Mayor Samuel Monroe's only daughter. What hadn't been on the news yet was what happened the morning before she met Malik. Jessica had been waiting for a car outside a friend's apartment when a patrol officer pulled up and began shouting at her and her husband. No warning, no questions, just a hand on the gun and a loaded voice. The officer, Daniel Brooks, claimed he thought her husband was reaching for something, but security footage told a different story. The footage showed the couple calmly waiting, no sudden movements, no confrontation. Brooks had approached, weapon drawn, and held them at gunpoint for nearly 3 minutes until backup arrived. Once he realized who she was, the officer backed off and tried to laugh it off. Evelyn leaned closer. She was shaken, but she wasn't just afraid for herself. She saw how quickly power can be misused, and when she saw you offer your seat, something shifted. Malik swallowed hard. "But what does this have to do with me?" "She saw you as the opposite of that officer. She saw dignity, respect, strength, and she wanted someone like you to know the truth. Not just about Brooks, about everything." Evelyn pulled out a folder and placed it in front of him. Inside were reports, printed emails, even internal memos. Malik stared at them, not sure what he was looking at. "She's been collecting this for months. Brooks has had complaints filed against him by black citizens, young men mostly. Accusations of threats, intimidation, abuse of authority. But none of them stuck. The system protected him." Malik flipped through one page, then another. It was hard to believe, until he saw the dates, the patterns. It wasn't just a bad cop. It was a pattern. "I'm not a lawyer," Malik said quietly. "I'm just a kid." "No," Evelyn said gently. "You're a voice. And sometimes, the right voice can change everything." Still, Malik wasn't sure what to do. He felt the weight of the folder, the weight of being pulled into something so big. He left the house with it tucked under his arm, his mind spinning with questions. He didn't want to be the center of anything, but now he couldn't ignore what he knew. Meanwhile, the media was just catching wind of the incident. Rumors swirled about an officer under investigation, but no names were confirmed. Inside City Hall, pressure was building. Jessica still hadn't spoken publicly, and Mayor Monroe was under fire from both sides, activists demanding justice and insiders urging silence. The officer, Brooks, had been placed on temporary leave, but no charges had been filed yet. And while the city stirred, Malik sat in his bedroom that night, staring at the folder, the note beside it. He didn't know it yet, but someone had already noticed his visit to Evelyn's house, someone who didn't want that folder to leave her hands. The whispers in the police department had already begun. At school the next day, Malik noticed a police cruiser parked down the street. Coincidence? Maybe, or maybe not. His phone buzzed with a number he didn't recognize. No message, just a hang-up. When he left school, he saw the same car again. The pressure was growing, and Malik realized this wasn't just about a gesture on a bus anymore. It wasn't even just about a dangerous officer. It was about something deeper. How truth can be buried, how power protects itself, and how sometimes the smallest actions ripple into something much larger. And still, no one had seen what was really inside that folder. No one had heard Jessica speak. No one knew what Malik would decide to do next. But someone was already watching him very closely.